Welcome to the Counselors of Real Estate's Top 10 in 10 podcast series. In these 10-minute episodes, we'll discuss one of the prevailing 2021 top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm your host, Jonathan Schein, CRE, CEO and Executive Director of the Real Estate Limited Partner Institute in New York. Counselors of Real Estate are trusted advisors finding solutions to complex real estate challenges. Experienced, innovative, and credentialed problem solvers, counselors practice in 20 countries and offer expertise in more than 50 real estate disciplines across all asset types and classes. Each has earned the prestigious CRE designation. Our guest for this episode is Conway, CRE, principal and co-founder of Red Shoe Economics in Lilburn, Georgia. Casey authored the narrative supporting the number 4 issue of this year's compilation of the top 10 issues affecting real estate, Supply Logistics. To review all of the issues in this year's report, visit cre.org/top10. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Jonathan. Glad to be with you guys.
Great. So the first question we have for you, and it's obviously been in the news a lot, the shipping industry is essentially in a crisis mode as backlogs persist at ports in the U.S. and around the world. How is this supply chain disruption affecting real estate in obvious and not so obvious ways?
Yeah, it seems like what we hear, the top of every evening news broadcast. So the first thing I want to make sure that we get across is it really is not a problem, with our ports not functioning, our railroads not functioning. They're functioning at record levels. What happened is really going into COVID, we were really transitioning from a shop and take home economy. I'm almost 60. I'd go to the mall, buy stuff and bring it home to an order online and deliver to me whenever the heck I want it. That's my millennial daughters from 21 to 27. And so what COVID did is it just accelerated all of that. And it even taught grandma and grandpa how to do online because they had to. They couldn't go to the grocery store. They were going to get COVID or things were closed. So we really were compressed and forced to have to deal with this. So the problem that we're having, and it really was revealed a little bit before COVID, whether you're a fan of Donald Trump or not, what he did through the tariffs in 2018 and 2019 was it revealed how fragile our supply chain was and how much stuff that we depend upon is manufactured in places of the world that are not in the United States and maybe aren't so friendly to us. And so we really had a year to try to get ready kind of for that. And then COVID hit and just put it, to an exponent or put it on steroids. And so what we're struggling with now, think about your house and the local city saying no longer can you have a water spigot at your house. You got to go hook up to the fire hydrant at the end of the street. You have this little garden hose and you're trying to hook it up to this, this big fire hydrant, and the pressure and the water flow, it just isn't there to handle it and distribute it. And that's kind of what we're seeing, off the coast of LA and Long Beach right now. I think the last time I checked over the weekend, it was 66 fully loaded container vessels off the coast of LA, Long Beach, all dragging their anchors along the bottom, pulling up oil pipelines and everything else. So it's quite a cluster. And if you think about that, if you've ever had, your water disrupted to your house or whatnot, the pipes, they spurt and air bubbles come out as you try to get things flowing back through the pipeline. And that's our challenge. And the rest of the world needs the same stuff, and they're going to supply themselves first before they do us. So, but it really isn't our ports or our railroads are working at record levels. Give you a highlight, and I normally don't, brag and boast on ports of LA and Long Beach because I'm on the East Coast, so we brag about our ports over here. But the ports of LA and Long Beach over the summer, I think it was July, they handled a record 1 million containers being unloaded and processed inland in 1 month. That had never been achieved anywhere in North America. So they're working 6 days a week. It's not, unions not working or demanding more. Our ports and our port directors are doing a very good job. We just can't get all that water into the fire hydrant that we have.
What exactly is it a manufacturing issue, or is it really just a logistics issue?
No, it really is to think about that pipeline. It's getting the water in the spigot. So where it's been manufactured. So China's had disruptions. They've had shutdowns. They've had their ports go down. Things like chips, and not the Lay's potato chips kind, the ones that we really need to run our electronics. Like refineries for gasoline, we haven't built a lot of these chip plants, and definitely not in the United States. In fact, we only manufacture maybe somewhere between 15 and 20% of all the chips that we need in the U.S. here. Ford had a big chip plant burned down, in the past year, and have had to replace it. So 80% of all of our chips come from somewhere else in the world to go into our cars and manufacturing. And the cars get a lot of headlines, and they should. Believe it or not, we have 1,400 chips in an average car. So that's a lot of chips. And now we're adding in EVs and autonomous vehicles and double that number. But it's not just cars. Think about appliances. So we did a home renovation during COVID, and so we had to get new appliances. And so I was reading the manual on our new range stove microwave, contraption. And I found out it had 80 chips in it. So it could sync to my phone and everything else, even lamps, which you want to be able to turn the lights on. And obviously those commercials, grandma and grandpa are somewhere and they can say, well, let's turn the lights on tonight or whatever. That all has about 8 chips in a lamp. So we've put chips in more things than we ever envisioned. We didn't build new plants. The ones where the capacity is, they're in places of the world that maybe don't necessarily like us, or they want to supply their stuff. So it really is, how do we get all this stuff into the pipeline? The thing that confuses me, though, I'll be honest with, is in 2019, we had an economy working on all cylinders. It was full go. We didn't have shortages of chlorine. We didn't have shortages of toilet paper. What in the world happened? Was it that we all hoarded it, or that we didn't have the truck drivers or the labor? I don't think we fully understand all of the broken linkages in our supply chain yet.
That's kind of a follow-up to the question I was going to ask, but thank you for that. And one last part about just disruption in the supply chain. We also know what happened in the Suez Canal earlier this year. Is that a warning sign that we're just getting a little too big and we're trying to move things too fast, or was that a one-off?
No, it's not. And, some of those stories might not have made the headlines 2-3 years ago as much as they did. So here's the 2 big stories. So we all focus on the Panama Canal, and we expanded that, and that's bringing big 12,000 container vessels in. Well, we need 24,000 now. That's what's moving between China and Europe. That's why they're getting resupplied. And so as we make these boats bigger and bigger to handle more and more containers, actually, the Suez Canal now has outgrown the Panama Canal and handles more container traffic. And so that may explain why maybe, China and Europe are able to function a little bit better. They're moving 20 to 24,000 container vessels coming into our ports. We can have vessels that can carry 20 or 24,000, but we don't have the depth and the berth and the gantry cranes to unload them. We can go up to, 12 to 15,000. And so we thought we had prepared our infrastructure with the Panama Canal expansion, and we find out it's not even half of what we need today. So it's a big issue, and it's not just it really is everything in our life. That's what's fueling the inflation. But on commercial real estate, we all got the headlines about lumber shortages and it affecting housing, and then we got the new NAFTA 2 agreement, the USMCA, that really got lumber moving back from Canada and all of that type of flow. But it's much broader than that in our commercial real estate. Think about hotels. Most of the packages for their bathrooms and whatnot come from there. Most of our furniture still comes, everything from Wayfair and whatnot. Home Depot, a lot of its things are made in Asia and they move into our ports. So in commercial real estate, really the average component that's going in is up about 12%. So I look to a resource called ENR, Engineering News Record, and they're showing that the numbers on construction affecting us in real estate are up 12%. So Fed, forget your 4 or 5% number. It's more than double that for us in real estate.
Unbelievable. Now, you've also said not all last mile logistics models are created equal. While invoking the term golden triangle, what do you mean?
Yeah, I conspired with McDonald's. They have arches, I have triangles. So I studied this for over a decade and kind of figured out some time ago that if you took the Great Lakes, which are really America's 4th coast, and about 30% of our GDP, come down to Texas, and then you come back over to Florida and capture the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic, that we have about over half our GDP is produced there. 80% of all manufacturing is in that triangle region. 80% of all the new Amazon, FedEx, logistics, Walmart supply chain is in that region because you can get to places, because most of our logistics infrastructure, our Class 1 railroads connecting to Gulf Coast ports, East Coast ports, are all easily done out of that last mile triangle. Sorry about that. There's always working from home. That's the beagle.
Working from home has its own merits and its own demerits.
Yeah, so it's really an area that I call it golden because that's where everything is kind of happening and accelerating. It's where the logistics is establishing. If you look at a map of Amazon's home improvement, its supply chain in Walmart stores, Walmart's the number one private employer in 21 states. They're all in that golden triangle. So when you go outside of that golden triangle region, you don't see much logistics, supply chain, manufacturing, or GDP production.
Wow. That's a lot to digest in just a few minutes, or 10 minutes, as it were. Well, thank you, KC. Obviously, the supply chain is at the epicenter of what makes our economy function, and commercial real estate is in the field where it all plays out, whether it's logistics, industrial, roads. All of the 2021-22 top 10 issues are highly interconnected and indicative of changing and evolving real estate landscape. We're grateful for your knowledge and contributions to this year's report. Join us next time for another discussion of the top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm Jonathan Schein. On behalf of the Counselors of Real Estate, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Top 10 in 10.